So if you've ever walked through the Sid Valley in Devon, you know it's just postcard perfect beautiful. But what if I told you that just beneath that gorgeous surface, there's this massive strategic effort going on to rebuild the entire life support system of the landscape? Okay, let's dive into the incredible story of Sidmit's Nature Recovery Network. And this quote, it just gets right to the heart of it all. See, we're not just looking at pretty fields and trees. We're talking about an invisible network, a superhighway for wildlife that's being carefully, deliberately pieced back together. So the big question is, why did it need rebuilding in the first place? Well, that brings us to the problem, the hidden crisis that really sparked this entire effort. You see, on the one hand, you've got that stunning postcard view we all know and love. But on the other, the reality for nature has been, well, a state of ecological shock. For decades, habitats have been chopped up into these tiny, isolated islands. And that traps wildlife, right? It stops it from moving, from adapting, from migrating as our climate changes. To put it bluntly, the system was totally broken. So, how in the world do you fix a system that's broken on that scale? You need a master plan. And thankfully, a really powerful one already exists. Now, you have to understand, this isn't just some local passion project. The whole thing is guided by something called the Lawton Principles, which are basically the gold standard for conservation strategy. And here's the crucial part. These aren't just ideas in a report anymore. They are now baked right into the heart of UK law. And what's great is how simple these principles are. The goal is to make nature's network more by adding new sites, bigger by expanding the ones we already have, better by improving their quality, and, this is the most important part for our story, joined up by creating those all-important connections that let life flow between them. And this is not a small ambition. It's all part of this legally binding national target you might have heard of 30 by 30, to protect 30% of UK land for nature by 2030. So yeah, the clock is ticking, and the scale of this is absolutely massive. And this is where that huge national strategy gets real, right down at the local level. In 2026, Devon's official master map is going to be finalized. And that map, well, it turns the big strategy into an actual actionable plan that landowners, developers, everyone will have to factor into their decisions. So what does this joined-up network actually look like on the ground? Turns out it's made of 5 key components. Let's break them down. Okay, first up, we've got the core areas. The best way to think of these is as nature's capital. They're the big, high-quality engine rooms that power the whole system. A perfect local example is the Knapp Nature Reserve. Places like this are the true reservoirs of life for the entire valley. I mean, they're absolute biodiversity hotspots, acting as the primary source from which nature can spread out and recover. Okay, so if the core areas are the big, bustling cities, then you need motorways to connect them, right? That's where corridors come in. These are the wildlife superhighways. And the River Sid is the #1 superhighway in the valley. It's this 2-kilometer green artery that lets species like otters and kingfishers travel safely all the way from the deep countryside right down to the sea. It's incredible. But you know, connectivity isn't always a solid line on a map. For more mobile species, like bees and birds, you need stepping stones. And you can think of these as ecological service stations, perfect for refueling on a long journey. And this is where it gets really cool and really personal. Public parks, community allotments, even your own back garden, they are all vital stepping stones. A single pollinator-friendly garden can literally be the crucial link that helps a bee get from one side of the valley to the other. Just like that, you become part of the superhighway. Fourth, our most sensitive areas, they need protection from human pressures, things like noise, light, or pollution. And that's the job of buffer zones. They act like these protective blankets. For instance, creating dark corridors is absolutely essential for species like the greater horseshoe bat. For them, a single bright streetlight can be like a brick wall, just completely blocking their flight path from where they roost to where they hunt. So these dark buffers, they're their only safe passage. And finally, we have the restoration areas. These are basically nature's construction sites. They're the places being actively improved and rebuilt. They are the future stars of the whole network. The most ambitious local example of this is the Heaths to Sea project. It's transforming 185 hectares of commercial conifer forest. But instead of the old way of just clear felling everything, they're using this careful, selective thinning process. What that does is create a permanent, multi-generational forest canopy. It's a truly long-term vision in action. So all of this is obviously great for wildlife. But what's in it for the people living in Sidmouth? Well, this is where the network becomes our own critical infrastructure. You see, a fully restored landscape, it acts as a giant climate sponge. And this isn't just a nice metaphor. By restoring wetlands and woodlands in the upper valley, the land can literally soak up intense rainfall. And that directly reduces the risk of flash flooding down in the town. It's nature acting as our best insurance policy. And now, there's a serious economic driver, too. There's a new rule called biodiversity net gain, or BNG. It legally requires any new development to leave nature 10% better off than it was before. This is a game changer. It fundamentally shifts the local economy to be nature first.
So we've got this grand, legally backed strategic plan. But the real beauty of it all is that its success comes down to every single piece of the puzzle. And that includes you. Because as this quote shows so brilliantly, nature just doesn't see our fences or our property lines. This network is a critical escape route for species that need to adapt to a warming climate, letting them move north or uphill to survive. And every single part of that route matters. You know, from a huge restoration project all the way down to a single garden stepping stone, every link makes the whole chain stronger. The most important point is, we are all the connective tissue in this living landscape. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If nature doesn't recognize our fences, just imagine what we can build together.